Well, Jason Rozin, I'm so excited to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, thank you.
We're actually together in person on camera,
Right.
and there is so much that we could talk about.
There is.
When I think of stewards of Premier Research Labs, and when I think of diplomats of who we are and brands and who really embodies our mission, vision, and values as a company, there's only a few. Well, there's a lot of people that come to mind, but in terms of reps, you're top of the list. And
Sorry.
well, maybe that's the goal. It's to share that emotion because you have so much. I would love to use this time intentionally for all the viewers, listening in to understand your story and the journey you've had with our organization and your personal journey within the supplement industry as a whole, because you've had a lot of leadership roles in a lot of different organizations, and now you're back with Premier.
I am, which I never thought would happen in a million years.
So maybe, talk about your journey in health and in the wellness industry and where you're at in life right now.
Okay, I will. It's I never get tired of telling the story. So I'm not good with years, but when I first came into understanding PRL supplements, I was working in banking, very high-level banking job, working crazy hours, financially very rewarding, but I was miserable. We were involved with putting together mortgage-backed securities that I knew. Like, I saw the bubble coming, so I'm like, I wouldn't loan this person 50 cents, let alone give them a zero-down mortgage, especially on a 2-year teaser rate. So I don't mean to get into that, but I was just not good. My father passed away from cancer at 53 years old, metastatic melanoma. I was still very Western-based at that time, but I saw, the HELL he went through with, the treatments and, with oncologists saying, this is what I would try if I were you, and just watching chemo just ravage him away. Not to say that, it doesn't have its place, but then I just started getting into going to a chiropractor. So Dr. Michael Knockin was the first chiropractor I went to, and it turns out I just was so blessed to find a guy who was super tapped in.
Yeah.
I thought chiropractors just cracked stat. So he's doing all this weird testing with me, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, I want you to try these supplements. I'm like, man, I've taken supplements my entire life. They never do anything. It just makes my pee stink. He's like, just try it. So he gave me a few PRL supplements, and I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, I actually feel good just holding this bottle. What is going on here? So I became super passionate about that. I was smart enough not to get married when I was young, so I'd have been a terrible husband. So around that time, I met my wife and got married. And then I was still working in banking at the time. Then she became pregnant with her son, Leo, second love of my life. And I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't do the banking anymore. So I told my wife one day, I'm like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go back to school to become a chiropractor. And she's like, okay, we do have a child on the way. And she supports, me finding a vocation. But she's like, isn't there something you can maybe do with that Premier Research Labs company that you keep going on about? And I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. So I found out who the local rep was. The local account executive was Antonio Paletta. And I relentlessly called him for seriously a month straight, every day. I started going out into the field and going to doctors' offices and saying, have you heard of Premier Research Labs? And they'd be like, no, I have no idea who they are. So I call them and be like, hey, I went to 2 more doctors' offices today. They have no idea who your company is. You're totally underrepresented. You need me out there to do this. So one day, after a month of me calling him literally every day, he calls me on the phone. I'm on my way to the office, and he's like, Jason, Dr. Marshall has a layover from Duluth, Minnesota. I was living in Minneapolis at the time, to the Minneapolis airport for 2 hours. Here's his flight number. Go meet him. After that, never call me. So I'm like, okay. And they hung up the phone. So I call my wife. I'm like, how am I going to get through security? She's, my wife's very well traveled. And she's like, if you rent a room in the airport, they give you a security pass.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I just only knew his picture from the website. So I hold up the sign, Bob Marshall, Dr. Bob Marshall. And he comes out just New York as ever, stomping his feet, just walking really fast. And he's like, oh, you're that guy that won't leave Dr. Paletto. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I have no idea why I'm even wasting my time with you. You'll never learn how to run a test kit. At the time, I didn't even know what a test kit was.
Yeah, you're like, what is this?
You have zero business even thinking about trying to feed into this field.
Oh.
And I don't know what I said, but I went into some kind of trance. And he stayed there with me for the whole 2 hours. And by the end of it, he's like, okay, kid, you got 90 days to bring on 30 docs. Didn't tell me about what my pay was going to be or anything like that. I'm like, done.
Wow.
So 90 days later, I hit that goal, and the rest is kind of history. I just became a total Kool-Aid drinker in QRA. I drove my wife nuts, lasering food and stuff in restaurants, just wanting to test people nonstop. I got just madly into Boss Stew. Thank you, Dr. Forbes. And yeah, it just totally lit up my life and, changed everything. Even my friends, I started to lose weight, started to just look better. My friends were like, wow, you are like a completely different person than you used to be. My wife even noticed it, stuff like that. So it was a great, perfect way for me to raise my child,
Yeah.
He almost never got sick when he was a kid. When he would get a fever, I would give him a bloody antibiotic. It would take it right down. It was just an amazing story. So that's the original PRL origin. And then eventually I became a diplomat, just super passionate about QRA. In the meantime, I went to Quantum University, and I have a bachelor's and a master's in integrative medicine. And I just have a dissertation to finish to do my PhD. So I did get a chance to go back to school.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Fulfill that dream. So
Not a chiropractor, but something even more impactful, right? That's awesome.
That's the beginning of the story. And then after, I think it was about 7 years here, which were amazing, I had the opportunity to start my own supplement line through someone who actually provides raw material. So somebody who's also very, very high level. His name's Troy Opperly, another just beautiful mentor. He reminds me a lot of Dr. Marshall. Those that don't know, Dr. Marshall, until he was in his 70s, would run 10 miles a day at a 7-minute per mile pace. That's absolutely insane.
True force of nature.
Yeah, and then Troy, who makes the primarily enzymes and probiotics, he summited to 7 summits. He won the Death March race through the Grand Canyon when he was in his 30s. So those of you who don't know what that is, you have to run into the Grand Canyon by yourself. There's no water stations, nothing like that. You have a GPS thing. You run in, you climb out, you hit this button, and then you go back in and run across. You have 24 hours to complete it.
That's wild.
It goes from super hot to super cold to just pitch black. He was telling me he's like hearing all these voices when he's on that canyon by himself. And he's just like, oh, I think I'm going to finish. He gets to the top. He won.
That's so cool.
Like most people are there, like, in their mid-20s, just incredible shape. He actually won that race. So I'm like, I can work with this guy. So he had been making enzymes for his clients, about 100 clients for years. And he'd always just got frustrated when he'd be like, this is the formula you should make. And they'd be like, nah, we want to do it this way. So he's like, all right, I'm going to just make my own practitioner line. And I met him through Hess, someone who used to work here at PRL, introduced us together. And it was just like, okay, I got a chance to start my own doctor-based supplement line. I got a chance to formulate, basically had a lot of control over running the company. And it was just too difficult to pass up. I still recommended tons of PRL stuff the whole time. So I probably should have asked for a 1099.
Back then.
But yeah, it was, there was no hard feelings or animosity whatsoever. And then after that, I moved to Europe, continued to do work with the enzyme line. And then I also did contract manufacturing work with Troy. Product formulations, helping people put together lines from the ground up or switch to a different manufacturer looking for higher quality. Just learned a ton doing that. And then I got to this point where I was either going to take a job in Copenhagen. I just knew I wanted to make a career move, and I wanted it to be my last. And then you and I started talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And so there's some changes going on at PRL. And I'm like, okay, I think I can get on board with this. And then after talking to you several times and Nick, I'm like, I can do this. This is it. Like, it was just that wave went over, like, and so many synchronicities along the way. So I was just like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And this is where I'm going to finish off my career and create my legacy or whatever, and I guess the rest is history. I'm super pumped to be here. Like, I just can't believe the changes that are actually happening here, the innovation that we're doing, the the stuff we're doing just to get into the biohacking community. And it's just crazy. The stuff we were talking about 20 years ago, people are finally starting to get, right?
They're waking up to what we've been doing for all this time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's the story for now. More to come.
Being written moment by moment on this very stage, and it'll go beyond even this.
Yeah, if it wasn't for you and Nick, I definitely wouldn't be here. So I'm eternally grateful to you and to Nick, but yeah, especially you. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't ever happen.
You are a catalyst for change, and I'm so excited for what the future has for us both. Talk to me a little bit about, when we look back on our legacy, Dr. Marshall is always coming to mind. And I do believe he's with us on this stage, and he's out there orchestrating the pivotal changes in the world that really allow us to thrive.
Yep.
When you think back on everything he taught you, because you had, so many moments with him, what comes to mind? And what would you like to share with people listening in?
Yeah, I just miss the guy so much. It's just, I don't know where do you start? He was so ahead of his time. Like, if he was 70 now, you'd be like the top influencer on freaking YouTube, Instagram, everything.
Yeah.
He just had complete and utter vision. And I just sometimes think it must have been very lonely for him to know as much as he did ahead of the time. But, the whole thank you thing that he taught me, just everything, just the time that he took. I just loved his attitude, his voice still just echoes in my brain, like just had that silky, smooth New York voice.
Yeah.
I just remember we were at a seminar once, and he took me aside, and this is, those of you that know Dr. Marshall, he's not a very emotional guy. He took me aside and said, it was one of the best decisions of my life hiring you, and you should finish off your career at this company. And he actually gave me a hug, which for that guy is like unheard of.
So
there were a lot of times he reamed me out, just himself, which I liked about him as well. But yeah, just him just being so ahead of his time, and I just miss him so much. I'm so glad Dr. Forbes is still here, continuing to innovate and do her thing, and I think she's just in the perfect space right now to help us to crush the SPOS2 stuff. And I really miss him a lot.
We all do. Would you say it's that thank you, though, that still kind of resonates with you most? Or is there something that, maybe a lesson for everybody listening in?
Yeah. The other thing that just seriously, I laughed for about a month on this. And he's like, if I made a product like that, he's talking about, I would wish that a lightning bolt would come and stick it in the brain in the middle of my sleep. It's just like, he just had unbelievable moxie. But just like never sacrifice quality and never sell to private equity. Will never ever happen here. And I guess those things.
It's true. It's a true definition of integrity in a lot of ways, and like embodying that, right?
Yeah.
And, I feel like the stories my tenure here at Premier, I only had like maybe one or two cross encounters with him. The first encounter was behind his desk, and he was like, it was my first couple weeks in, and he looked at me straight in the eyes, and he was like, "You like it here?" And he was testing me. I could tell he was testing me, and I was quivering. I was just like, I am in the presence of this giant, and I just whimpered out, yes, like, I was so excited. And, I've been, my journey here, I've grown up with this organization in a lot of ways. And, but it's been kind of in a different era, without necessarily him fully physically here, but it's so cool to witness how we as an organization are embodying those values and also transcending those values to a completely different generation. And I would love your thoughts and kind of your reflections on how we're evolving and where what you would like to see in the world, and really your goal and your impact here with this new chapter at Premier.
Okay. It's amazing questions and comments. One of the biggest things when I came back here was that, and rightfully so back in the days, it was just PRL, QRA, that's it. Because there was nothing even comparable out there. But things, because of people like Dr. Marshall and Dr. Forbes, have started to evolve and are starting to kind of maybe not catch up, but go in the right direction. And just the openness of the company and the staff and people like you to do cross-marketing projects, work with other people that are doing really cool things. It was always really frustrating to me to be out in the field and find all these cool things and then try to bring people together. And it was always just a bunch of ego, like, oh no, it's the way you do it. And I'm just like, I thought this industry was going to be love and light. And it's like, back in high school sometimes. But just, the willingness to bring in really high quality stuff. And of course, vetting it to the utmost for integrity and finding those things that are just really unique out there that can really help people that are going to pair so well with PRL. And you and Nick being willing to do that, that was just massive to me. So yeah, the innovations we're making, we're bringing in products from other companies, we're cross marketing, and we're going global, which is huge. So, and we're bringing out new products, and we have like people like you are influencing Nick on, and he listens on what we should do next and maybe what product we should make or what changes we should make. So a lot of that stuff just wasn't here before, and it's rightfully so, but now it is time for that, and it is happening.
Yeah.
It is happening. We just did the summit here, and everyone was just buzzing. Holy cow. Not you guys are back, but you guys are freaking on your way to the stratosphere.
Amen.
So yeah.
I think
hopefully that answers.
Yeah, it's this embodiment of a true heartfelt passion to change the world, and knowing where we will always operate with that integrity, but also knowing where you have to operate with humility and understanding where that's not what we're specialized in, but we're going to partner with the very best in the world to bring that to the people that really need it.
That's well said.
And I think this is the really exciting time because practitioners and fellows and stewards of bioenergetic disciplines are needing community. There is beautiful thought leadership going on in the world, but there isn't necessarily alignment and a central core of, well, how can you find all those resources and make all those in those one places? And there's still
so much garbage out there. Just being a consumer trying to sit through this kind of stuff, being this health hub is exactly what the world needs right now.
Amen.
There's very few people doing that, and I think we're going to be the best at it without a doubt, hands down.
It's so true. When you, what's your guide? Is there a guiding principle for you in terms of how you move through the world and you live your life?
Oh man. Well, I'd like to go by above the line thinking. I'm acceptance, I'm a hero, I'm choice, I'm hope, I respond, I'm love, I'm results, I'm a cause, I'm 100% responsible. I'm abundance, I'm clarity, I give feedback. And I think I live above the line is something that me and my son have repeat every night before we go to bed. And then on an esoteric side, we kind of say the Star Mother is dynamic and forgiving, as life with integrity, love without judgment, and nurturing in the absence of fear. All existence is within the sphere. The sphere contains the whole and the part. All is one and one is many. Like holding hands in a circle, we can feel our true connectedness, which we did this week.
Amen.
Those, I guess, would be the mantras.
Yeah.
That I sit back and reflect on. Try to, especially when I get frustrated or make mistakes, and just remember, hey. And whenever I get down on myself, I just look at my son and I'm like, you did something really right. So, yeah.
I feel that. Those affirmations, I feel like they filled me with life and kind of a breath, and I appreciate you for sharing that. For practitioners listening in, what question would you challenge them to ask of themselves every day, if possible? Yeah.
Be ready for change and don't get down on yourself. Actually, number one thing is take care of yourself. None of you do that. Very few of you take care of yourself. You put too much of your love into other people. You need to love on yourself. So that would be the thing. We need you. So the only way you're going to be around and be at your sharpest is if you start taking better care of yourself. Maybe do 2 or less stations a month or something like that. Something. Spend more time working on yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of how am I practicing self-love in this moment?
Yeah.
And, making sure you're always showing up for yourself, because you can't heal another person if you're not taking care of yourself and loving yourself, right? That goes for our jobs too, right?
It does. We're as guilty as
We can be. We certainly can be.
yeah.
I always like to talk product, and I know we're going to have some product standalone videos here, but what product do you love the most here at Premier Research Labs? And what do you think every practitioner, regardless of modality, belief, they should have in their office?
Digest, being digested enzymes, of course.
Yeah, there you go.
Everything starts there. Like, you wonder why you get autoimmune disease. Yeah, we all have leaky guts, but those proteins don't get broken down fast enough. They're going to get in there, and they're going to create these quote unquote autoimmune reactions. So, like, people always ask me, like, should I take a multivitamin? Should I take this? And of course, everyone's on this hot supplement that was like digestive enzymes right there. And there is no negative feedback, and so you guys know, like, you can't shut your enzyme production down by taking enzyme. It's completely different than hydrochloric acid. So it's all you're doing is putting money in the bank. And when you run out of those guys, you are gone. And so enzymes produced by photonic light. We know that. So when people get older, the light literally just goes out of them. So it's like enzymes, start your kids on them. Like, as soon as they can start taking them, I think it's the most important supplement, hands down, to take as much as possible, especially as Dr. Marshall would always say, never eat a cooked food meal without
Amen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of garbage ones out there. We're definitely at the top of the list, and there's a few good ones out there, but not bad.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the more adulterated spaces in the market, and just enzyme activity and just mislabeling of enzyme. I mean, we could go.
It's a whole. That's another 1 hour.
Yeah, exactly. That can be a webinar in itself, which I'll look forward to getting off and into the ether. We do a lot with energetics, and energetics is a core facet to who we are as a company. But there are a lot of practitioners that have never necessarily maybe encountered energetics. They haven't necessarily walked into that world. And how would you, maybe provide advice or guidance or help to translate what that energetic world is to the more functional or allopathic?
Well, thanks. That is changing. People are finally understanding, but quantum physics is pretty much, very outdated.
Yeah.
Like, I just watched I don't like watching a lot of videos, but Neil deGrasse Tyson was interviewing some quantum physicists, and they did some experiment trying to figure out, like, if there was a huge difference between something that was synthetic, like they were using some of this 3D printer stuff, and real, and they did some quantum test, and whatever device they were using, when they tried to trick it many times, it never went to the synthetic. So that's because it has what? Energy. It has light. It has frequency. Something that is synthetic does not. So it still just drives me nuts that people are taking like tons of vitamin C. Yeah, maybe it has its place if you're really sick. You need to pound a bunch every.
Yeah, of course.
If you start taking that stuff every day, you're gonna just oxidize the living daylights out of yourself. So whole food nutrition is, it's the future. Even though we've been saying it for 30 years.
Right, exactly.
Process started saying it 50 years ago, which I applaud them for that. And just start there and just know that the science completely backs this up. It's just not a Fritz Edward Pop experiment. This is being verified over and over and over again. And even in mainstream science, I know that in Israel there is a frequency-based device being used to treat they did their studies on stage 3 liver cancer. And they have like an 80% success rate. People at stage 3 liver cancer, they're usually gone very quickly. So like, it's just undeniable at this point. And there is so much more to it that we've barely cracked the surface. So energetics are like, they're everything. And look at like any super rich person, look the way their houses are set up.
Oh yeah.
It's not coincidence. So this is stuff that's known, and now it's being available to everyday people, just like med beds and frequency-based medicine. It's everywhere, and it's just undeniable. Like, again, there is a lot of junk out there, so you have to be very careful. But it's just completely evident that this stuff is beyond real. And what we've been saying for a long time, people are, I think, finally starting to accept, even It's hardcore biochemists. So biochemistry cannot explain.
Mm-hmm. I can't.
Say so, and it just can't. It never will be able to.
No, it was always the question I asked myself. You know, even after I graduated college, I was like, why? I never got the answer I was ultimately seeking, and it took me the journey to Premier, and now I intuitively feel like I know it.
Yep.
I don't necessarily need to understand it, but I know it, and there's a difference.
There is a difference. That I don't know if we'll ever understand it, at least not anytime soon, completely. But it's, you know, it's no longer voodoo. It's just mainstream.
Yeah.
It's like if people ask me, well, I say I don't believe in that. I'm like, well, what do you think? The Earth is 5,000 years old? Like, come on.
There's a lot that we don't understand, and and I think that goes back to that deep humility. And you know, we have to know what we know, and then we have to know how much we don't know, which is usually it's actually a lot more than we will ever know. But the cool thing is, and what really gives me hope and it really gets me excited is technology and society is all advancing to understand that unknown. And there's this intuitive flow of consumer, practitioner, collective consciousness to understand this energetic domain.
Yep.
And, you know, we see this in terms of trends of personalized medicine and personalized health and healing and, you know, the integration of these disciplines. And this is what just makes me so excited for where we're at here at Premier is that's our goal, right? That we want to bring that all together. And we always have, you know, it just hasn't necessarily been communicated effectively.
Once again, we're ahead of the time. But things are catching up a lot faster. So I think we're going to have to wait 20 years for people to kind of get some of the stuff we're doing now.
Well, you know, is there one, and just to kind of maybe close this off and close this space, you know, is there one thought, reflection, or idea you'd like to share with everybody listening that you feel they should hear?
Well, I think we covered a lot of this already. Maybe we'll go into something like a clinical application. So one thing that always drove me nuts is I would always try to start as basic as I could and then go into the infections, the interference fields of osteopathy. And some of these patients just wouldn't budge. Like at first, they would get phantom pain in this knee, then it would go to that knee. And I thought, oh, usually the chronic Lyme patients, I'm like, oh, some babesia got in here or some Bartonella or something. And then I started studying neurology and microglial cells. And when they become primed, so I'll try to make this really super condensed. So microglial cells have tentacles like an octopus, and they're scavengers. They move through your brain. They're not like astrocytes, which are just your brain blood barrier, and they clean up your brain like lymphatic tissue. I guess they go in there. And when you get a concussion or infections or Lyme disease, your brain blood barrier becomes cracked, which happens to just about everyone. If you have a leaky gut and if you have a leaky brain, these microglial cells, they lose their tentacles, so they can't go scavenge. And it can get actually worse than that. They can become what's called primes. They can go through two states, like a lipopolysaccharide state, where they only produce inflammatory cytokines. And then they can go through an M2 state where they produce anti-inflammatory cytokines. This is done by John Hopkins. This is just an Go study. And it's crazy that you can actually take the primed ones and turn them into M2 state by using bioflavonoids. That was the only thing that they found would do this. So you're good guys who want to take care of those with all the great neuro supplements, but once they become primed, the only thing you can do to keep them from producing inflammation is bioflavonoids. So I started playing with propolis, rutin, ultrapollen, circuzyme, some of those products, and having the patient take it at night. And like all that work we did was great. Now the neurologic symptoms are gone. The pain is gone. Sleeping through the night. So like those are the patients that keep us up at night. We're like, what's that miss? You know? But like that was a huge breakthrough. So like seriously, bioflavonoids taken at night, because that's when these guys are the most active, would be something that, and I know all you practitioners out there, these cases drive me nuts, especially when the patient sticks with you for so long and does everything you say and you just don't get the results. You feel awful. But this has been something, and you can QRA and test it at the head fields, or just usually with propolis, I usually have people just take 4, circuzyme 3, ultrapollen, I usually have them take 6, but just have them take it at bedtime. And or with an enzyme, preferably a systemic enzyme to help the absorption. But yeah, as long as they're not eating and going to sleep, that's the best time to do it. And I've had like breakthrough results just doing that. So I guess I'm leaving a little clinical curl.
I love that. That's what we love. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's just to touch on that and wrap that. It's how are we, you know, there's different processes of the body that kind of turn on at certain points of the day. And, you know, the cleaning crew is most active at night, you know, and if the cleaning crew doesn't have the resources it needs, it's not going to succeed. And that
They get pretty dirty pretty fast.
they are going to get dirty pretty fast. Well, I love that. And thank you. Just thank you for sharing your wisdom and your steward. Everything you do incorporates a true diplomat of our organization. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and soul for everything you're doing to transform the world.
Thank you. And I echo that to you, Will. I really mean that a lot. Like the team you built here is just like, you can't make it up. Like it's real deal. And this is just the beginning. So love you, brother.
I love you too, man. It's an organization based on heart and love. And we're so excited to have Jason here with us, and reach out to him if you ever have questions,
absolutely.
thoughts.
I'm always here for questions, even though I live overseas. I'm a lot like Nick and Will. We don't sleep as much as we should.
But we take the right supplements to empower our cleaning crew at night when we need it, right?
Yeah, we walk the walk here.
Thanks again, Jason, and thank you all for listening in, and we'll be back with more with Jason Rozin.
Thank you all so much.